everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Smith and Hesson. We've had a couple of weeks off, actually, because there hasn't been a heck of a lot happening in the cricket world, so we took a bit of downtime. But we're back now because the IPL is back big and strong, and the man who's in charge of running the whole of it for the Royal Challengers Bangalore, Mike Hesson, of course, my partner in crime here, is a very happy man at the moment. We're going to talk about that with Mike very shortly, just how they've hit the ground running so hard and have been so superb. But first of all, I think one of the hottest topics, Mike, on the agenda at the moment is this the red listing of India by certain countries. And when I say red listing, because of the COVID situation, a number of countries are refusing to let people from India or Indian residents returning back to their countries of birth, etc., or whatever, back into the country. I mean, there's just no travel between the two. How is that affecting your situation individually? How do you perceive it will affect the IPL and cricket going forward?
Yeah, look, it's probably a little bit early to know, Smithy. I mean, at the moment, we're in our little biosecure bubbles, travelling from place to place, and we're very isolated in terms of what we do. But we realise that outside of that, India's certainly in a bit of turmoil. So, look, we're obviously reading all the news articles with interest, along with everybody else. I guess what has happened previously with the travel from country to country is because players and coaches or whatever are in bio bubbles, then they're potentially secure in terms of being able to move because they're getting tested every day or every couple of days. There's some really strict protocols around that. Everyone travels sort of in PPE suits or whatever's deemed to be appropriate. So I know when players have come from South Africa and other potentially red listed areas or countries, that's been the way they've got around it. So, look, plenty of water to go under the bridge between now and hopefully when we are looking to leave or India's looking to head to England for the World Test Championship. But certainly I'm sure there's plenty of work going on behind the scenes, that's for sure.
So I've been through Indian airports, and even in normal times they are chaotic and pretty hard work. So just explain, do you go and mix in the public areas, or do you, when you say you're in your bubble, are you on buses straight to the aeroplane, straight up the stairs, on your own aeroplane, back to your bubble, into your hotel? Is that basically how it works?
That's basically how it works, yeah. So we're at a different terminal. So we hire a separate terminal, so we don't go through public areas. As you said, we literally stay on our bus until we can get straight into the security part, straight through security, straight onto the plane. So, we're very much away from the public arena. As I said, it takes a little bit longer, obviously, in terms of making sure that there's that social distancing and space and making sure no one's standing around in any areas. But, yeah, we're pretty much straight on the bubble, straight to our hotel, which is we get a separate entrance to the hotel, separate lifts, and then we're in our own floors. So we don't mix with anybody else. It's all, very much in our own biosecure areas. So, look, we feel safe within that area, and there's certainly been a heck of a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make sure that we do feel that way.
What we can talk about is what actually is happening at the moment, and the fact of the matter is your side is playing outstanding cricket. You're unbeaten. There's been 12 games completed in the competition. You got 6 points. There's 3 on 4 snapping at your heels, and a couple of sides not going so well. First of all, what's been the secret, Mike? I guess I could compliment you and say planning, because I know you've been over there for a long time, but it's all turning out to be good on the field. What's been your secret there?
Look, a big part of that is we've had two key players play really well on a difficult surface, and they got in form early. Both Maxwell and AB de Villiers have been the standouts in terms of at Chennai. In terms of Chennai, it's been really difficult to chase in particular. Generally, after 10 overs, the balls got so soft that a lot of your power players and all the other sides have really struggled to get any momentum. So, Maxwell's hit the ground running. He's basically gone out and taken that pressure off the rest of our middle order in terms of scoring. So he scored at a good clip. It's allowed the other guys to have time to get in. And then we've had 2 AB de Villiers masterclasses really on a surface where no one else has been able to score much better than a runner ball. So that's been a huge part for us. I think from a bowling attack, our Indian bowlers have been exceptional. Harshal Patel, who we traded during the off-season, has been exceptional in those conditions at the death. That's certainly an area that we identified we needed to strengthen. Mohamed Siraj has gone from strength to strength. He bowled really well on the Australian tour, and a lot of New Zealand viewers would have seen him make his debut over there, and he bowled exceedingly well. So he's done really well. The young fella Shahbaz Ahmed came on and turned the game for us in our second match against SRH. So we're having different players stand up at different times, and I guess that's the sign of any successful side. So we've still had a few key players not make a huge contribution yet, which is a good sign for us heading to Mumbai, which I think all the batsmen are looking forward to that shift, that's for sure.
Kyle Jamieson has had 3 outings, so you took a punt with him, a big money punt. You must be pretty happy with his return too, first time up in this competition.
Yeah, I mean, 5 wickets in 3 games has been great for Kyle, just to get that confidence up. And he's also made 3 really important contributions with the bat for us. You've been a part of 3 good partnerships. Not huge in terms of numbers, but those partnerships have been critical. Him coming in at 7 or 8, we promoted him to 6 the other day. He got 11 off 4 balls and just continued that momentum sort of in the 18th, 19th over. So, look, he's started really nicely. Looks like he's confident. And I think, once again, him coming to Mumbai with a little bit more bounce, should suit him better than Chennai. I mean, he never would have played on a surface like that before in his life. So the fact he's got 5 wickets in those conditions has been great for him and great for us.
You've also, at the last minute, recruited Finn Allen as a replacement for Philippi. Tell us what he's been doing. Maybe he hasn't made the playing arena yet, but what's he doing? What's he learning?
Well, he's had a couple of open wickets early on in Chennai, and to be fair, he's been impressive. First couple of balls, he's come out against Navdeep Saini and whacked him over mid-wicket twice, 4-6, first 2 balls. So all of a sudden, everyone sort of stood up and took notice of what he's got on offer. So he certainly hit the ground running. Obviously, he had quarantine, so he came into our group a little bit late. And once again, I think the Chennai surfaces were certainly different, but he's starting to make that transition and learning from the other guys in terms of adapting to really slow turning surfaces. Once again, Mumbai is probably more to his liking, so he will come into consideration now. I think he's fully fit, fully adjusted. It just depends the balance we want to go in with. But look, he's pretty quiet in terms of just soaking it up around the group. But he's also very confident in his own game. So, look, we're really happy to have him here, and he's certainly a genuine option for us, moving into these other venues.
At the other end of the table, of course, Sunrisers Hyderabad have yet to earn a point. Now, it's not that worrying for us back in New Zealand because it's a David Warner-led thing. The thing that worries me predominantly is the fact that Kane Williamson hasn't played yet. And he hasn't played yet because he's got this nagging elbow injury. I'm starting to think that this elbow injury is a bit more serious than we've sort of given it time for. And I'm starting to wonder whether he's going to need some sort of major surgery on that elbow at some point because it just continues to happen. He's still a relatively young man with a lot to offer. How are you reading that situation? Because he has not played a lot of cricket the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, we had a good chat with Kane before the start of the game the other day. So I think he's pretty much ready to go. So he's, it was uncomfortable for a while, and he hadn't probably hit as many balls as he wanted, but he was feeling pretty confident to play. So I'd be very surprised if they don't bring him in now. They've got a couple of games in Chennai. Then they go to Delhi, which is another slow surface. So I would have thought probably one of your better players is spin. You want to get him in there as quick as possible. Look, to be fair, because I asked him about his hip's fine, and I think his elbow's good to go. So, look, I didn't ask specifics, and I think, Kane knows his body as well as anyone, and obviously the World Test Championship is a huge thing for him and all of us in New Zealand. So, he certainly wouldn't compromise that, but I'm pretty sure he's ready to go if selected now based on, just the brief conversation we had the other day.
Oh, that's good news indeed. I really, I get a bit worried about him from time to time because I know he's had a heavy workload over the last 3 or 4 years with all the roles that he performs for the New Zealand side. But I just started to think that he might have needed something a bit more serious because for a guy of his ability, he just doesn't play enough at the moment for me. So I'll keep an eye on that. But it's a bit of a worry
Definitely,
for me. Look, yeah. I look at the other guys from New Zealand's point of view who are playing in the IPL. Trent Bolt settled into his work, and man, they're a heck of a combination, aren't they? Bumrah and Bolt.
Look, they are, Smithy. I mean, obviously left and right, but one's got great slower balls. Obviously, Bumrah can do most things. But Bolty's had to bowl the 20th over in a couple of games, and he's come up trumps. AB probably took to him a little bit in that first game. He didn't quite get it right, but he's got that knuckleball coming out beautifully. As I said, come and bowled in 2 pressure situations and closed the game out. So, yeah, when you know that the last 3 overs are going to be 2 from Bumrah and 1 from Bolt, it's certainly not something you can be getting, 10s or 12s and over with any certainty. So, yeah, Mumbai have got that tied up. And they also got Adam Milne. You would have seen Adam Milne, Smithy, the other night get his first run out, which was good to see. So what did you see from him?
Well, I like the fact that he's continuing to be fit and available because, he was available one week and not available the next. That was his history for New Zealand for such a long period of time. So therefore, everyone wanted his pace. They wanted that fire, that bounce because, we were lacking it, but we couldn't rely on him to be fit and available. And it seems that every time they go to him, he's ready to play. And I think of everything, that's the most impressive thing. He's got bigger, he's got stronger. And I think probably mentally he's in a better place as well. So I'm liking the look of that. I really am going ahead and, to what we're looking at perhaps September, October, November, the World T20 in India. I think he could be a real asset. Particularly, he might be in a race with Lockie Ferguson. I don't know. Lockie Ferguson hasn't played any cricket yet. Tim Seifert, Brendan McCullum, of course, is the boss at KKR. He hasn't bothered to use those guys at this point. Mitch Santner hasn't played. Jimmy Neesham hasn't played for Mumbai. I think we talked about that. They're always perhaps going to be bit part players. Are you surprised that maybe Santner or Ferguson haven't had a run?
I think Santner will come into consideration when Chennai move to a different venue. So if they head to Delhi, then I think he could come into consideration. They spent big money on Moeen Ali, so you presume obviously bats at 3 and bowls, and they've got Jadeja back fully fit. So I guess that makes it difficult for a guy like Santner to get a huge amount of game time, especially in Mumbai where generally it's seamer focused. So both those guys bat in the top 6 or 7. So I think he's more in there as a backup or a condition-based guy. Lockie, once again, when they get to Mumbai, which they are now, Lockie could well come into consideration. Obviously we saw when he came in last year, he made an impact straight away, in Abu Dhabi, and we know that when he's bowling well, he's very, very good. So, those guys could well get an opportunity more as the tournament progresses, I think.
Number 1 on the batting list at the moment and runs accumulated is Glenn Maxwell. Outstanding, as you say, playing very, very well. You've already mentioned AB de Villiers who's at number 3, so you've got 2 of the top 3. So that's one of the reasons which you're going so well. But that leads to the AB de Villiers eternal question: will he be available for South Africa again? So the T20 World Cup is on the calendar. He's playing so damn well. He's 37 years of age, and he's apparently been in the odd sort of informal conversation with a few people, including Mark Boucher, but he has said openly that they will have a proper discussion at some stage during this IPL. He's been unbelievably good there, and you'd have to have him if he was remotely interested in Indian conditions. I read a stat this morning. His death over strike rate, in other words, right at the end when things are going and the pace bowlers come back to bowl those quick Yorkers and slow balls, etc., his strike rate is 234.37. Now that's it's out of this world crazy.
Look, when I was coach of the Blackcaps, we played against AB a few times, and you only play them against them every now and again, and you go, look, he's a really good player, but when you spend every day with him from last year, which we did, you work out he's actually really good. He's an incredibly special player, and he just does things that no one else in the world can do, and he does it regularly. So, the role we've asked him to play this year is probably one of the hardest roles. He batted on the slowest wicket in the country, coming out at 5 when the ball's soft and everybody's struggling, and he still does what he can do. So it just shows how good he is. So yeah, I mean, I think if you or I are sitting at a selection table for South Africa, I don't think it would be a very long one, Smithy.
No, I'd be on my knees actually, Hester, on my hands and knees. If I was coaching a side, if my job depended on it, because that's what international coaches thrive on, is success, and how they keep their jobs is to do well. My God, I want all the tools in the tool bag, and if he is remotely available, mate, I'm cooking him dinner every night until he gives up and says yes. So it's just a given for me. He's just so darn good, and he's not your typical 37-year-old. Let's be fair. I mean, that guy's been an athlete. He's played across the board in all sports, left hand, right hand, upside down. He's brilliant at everything.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, he plays golf off scratch. Like everything he does, he makes look easy. So you're right. I mean, he's 37, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know. I mean, he's wicket keeping because he loves it, loves being involved in the game. And he comes up with his own sort of technique. But because he's got such amazing hand-eye coordination, he gets the job done. And he could field. He can do whatever you want, really. So yeah, he'd certainly be one of the first on my team sheet. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we agree forever on that. Hey, look, tribute time again, and there hasn't been a lot of cricket, of course, happening back home, but Ian Galloway passed away, and you'd know Ian Galloway, I imagine, through your time in Dunedin, one of Dunedin's New Zealand's most respected citizens, of course, a very successful solicitor down there. But we knew him predominantly as a cricket commentator. He actually, at the time of his death, was the oldest living first-class cricketer in New Zealand, which was something I wasn't aware of until I found that out. But I remember him, Hess, as being one of the nicest men I'd ever met in my life. You'd never meet a more pleasant person. And I grew up listening to sports roundup, with all the cricket used to go from ground to ground to ground. And every time you knew you went to Carisbrook, you'd hear those beautiful, beautiful sounds of Ian Galloway with a bit of Langford Smith thrown in as well. And you'd be able to picture what was actually happening at the Brook, because his description of the game was so clear, so precise, so smooth. But we're missing a great man of New Zealand sport, but a great legacy he leaves of commentary, I think, particularly radio commentary in New Zealand. A heck of a guy, and I just think he's so special. What are your memories of him?
Yeah, look, I just remember him turning up to the long room at University Oval in the latter years, and just sitting next to him and just listening, and him just telling stories about his commentary and all his experiences at Carisbrook. I remember as a kid growing up sitting at Carisbrook with the radio on and just listening to him all day, watching first-class cricket or whatever. So his voice, those dulcet tones, I guess, of Ian Galloway was just. And just the way he described the game, you actually did feel like you were there. So whether I was sitting in the stand or at home, you always felt like you got such a great description of not only what just happened, but actually where the game was at that time. He was just a lovely man, and then just sitting and listening to him and just really enjoyed his passion for the game. And him and Peter Sellers used to sit together in the long room and talk, and I just sort of try and sidle up and just sit there and listen. And it was pretty special time. So, lots of fond memories, Smithy.
Yeah, lots of fond memories. His partnership he had with Jeremy Coney, John Parker and Brian Waddle was one of the most engaging. They just worked together so well. And I think I recall a game of cricket where he commentated an over at Eden Park. It was a very flat afternoon at the end of a test match, and nothing much was happening. And a lot of people around the ground had their transistors on. So what they did, apparently, they say this is true, he turned his back to the game, still commentating, so he had his back to the game, and Coney and Parker were going through the motions of what was happening on the field, and he was trying to describe the game of cricket through the back of his head on their actions out behind him. So apparently it was just hysterical. Wow. I hope somewhere there's a tape of it, because they were in hysterics. The crowd at the ground were in hysterics, and I'm sure everyone driving down the road was as well. But that was his special trait. He could combine as a commentator with I mean, Benno like for me. Benno welcoming, welcoming along make you feel very comfortable sitting alongside him, but just pure class. So sorely missed Ian Galloway, and a great contribution. Also rewarded for a great contribution to the New Zealand Cricket Awards, Jeff Crowe was the latest recipient of the Bert Sutcliffe Medal. Now, of course, Jeff Crowe, Chopper, New Zealand captain, New Zealand secondary schools captain, all the way through. Went to South Australia to ply his trade and learn the game under the likes of Ian Chappell and around people like David Hawkes and co. But of late, of course, I think 12 to 15 years as a match referee. And by and large, he's had the odd slip-up, they all do, but very popular.
Yeah, he certainly was. I mean, to be fair, that's one of the things probably we missed the most, is that being with New Zealand, we never got to have Jeff our match referee until COVID's come along, and he's done a lot of the home games, so he never got to do any matches in New Zealand. But had a chance to share some time with him actually at Ross Dykes' funeral. And just a great man, loves the game, keeps in touch with what's happening with New Zealand cricket all the time, but obviously he hasn't been as directly involved as he or we would have liked. But yeah, on the circuit, he's hugely respected. You come across any of the other teams, captains or coaches, and he's tough. I mean, you remember him probably as a youngster when you were playing. You would have played with him a huge amount, I'm sure. But he was always known as a tough taskmaster from all the people that I talked to when he was on the field. I remember talking to Rigger, Mark Richardson, when he was his captain, and he was a bit scared of him. But he certainly didn't come across that way when I was able to spend some time with him. But what memories have you got of Chopper on the field? Was he tough?
Well, he had to captain a fairly strong side, he had some fairly powerful figures within the side. Sometimes as a younger player, that's a bit hard to do, but unless you are able to gain the respect of them as a leader and as a person as well. And Jeff Crowe has certainly had that, he'll always tell you he's never as good a player as his brother, Martin, and he'll always admit to that. In fact, Chopper's one of his great sayings when he was meeting people for the first time, he'd say, "Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm Martin Crowe's brother." And even though he was in the same side, it was quite funny actually. But Chops, he's done well. I'm so glad that he's managed to do this, and he's dedicated a hell of a lot of his life to cricket. So, and still going, and still very, very keen on what he does. I spoke to him, had a cup of coffee with him just the other day. And the other, of course, the big winner in the night was once again Kane Williamson, who received the Richard Hadley Award for Supreme New Zealand Cricketer. Interesting one because he had been injured a lot, but I think a fair enough award. A lot of people, I think there's a bit of speculation about Conway or even Jamieson for the effect that they've had in a short space of time. But Conway doesn't qualify as yet because he doesn't play Test cricket, hasn't played Test cricket. And I think that's the hardest form of the game and the most satisfying to come through is Test cricket still. And so I kind of feel that if you haven't played that, you're going to find it very, very hard to win that award.
Yeah, I think so. And I think history suggests that Sir Richard Hadley medal is based largely around Test cricket and the impact you have on that. So, I'm sure Jamieson would have been considered because he was outstanding this season with the ball in Test matches. But the impact that Kane had in tough times, having lost a lot of tosses, got thrown in on some green wickets early on in the season, that double 100 against Pakistan, the big 100 at Hagley, like he just kept rolling them out to a point where, if New Zealand were ever in trouble at any stage, enter Kane Williamson. And he always got us ahead of the game, and then the bowlers came into it. So I think thoroughly deserved. He's just such a fine player. And as I said, he does it so many times in tough conditions, which, I know his teammates just hugely respect.
Yeah, okay. We'll leave it at that. There's nothing else really going on in the world of cricket at the moment. A few meetings over rule changes, etc., but nothing firm as yet. But we'll keep an eye on that as well. Hey, look, enjoy Mumbai as much as Mumbai as you can. Just your bedroom again in the cricket ground. But always good to chat. The main thing is, mate, stay safe, hey, and we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Smithy. Appreciate it. You too.